How much do you know about the 1,000-year reign of Jesus Christ? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome to the program today. My name is Mano Gonzalez, and I'm here in studio with Bill Salus. Bill, welcome.
Hey, Mano. It's great to be back doing another show on this millennium.
Yeah, we're here to talk about the millennium, and Bill has written a tremendous amount of information on this topic. There's a lot written in the Bible about it, but the hard thing about it is it's written a little bit here and a little bit there. So, Bill, let's talk about really what's life like in the millennium.
Okay, absolutely. And you're right about the millennium. You know, Dwight Pentecost said, there's more written in the Bible about the millennial period of time than any other period of time, more than when the first coming of Jesus Christ, more than in the tribulation, etc. So I've got a book with 344 pages covering 4 parts of that we got to deal with after the second coming: the 75-day interval, which we covered in the last show, the millennium, which we're going to get in a little bit to right now, the highlights of it, the aftermath age, and the eternal order, okay, the everlasting at that point. Highlights of life in the millennium. There'll be a global government ruled by Jesus Christ. Only gladness and rejoicing in the millennial Jerusalem, a world filled with the knowledge and glory of the Lord. Many kind-hearted people leading righteous lives. No more war, a pure singular language. Instantaneous answers to prayer. There will be end of blindness and deafness. There will be crippled people that walk and leap, and mute people who talk and sing. Additionally, and these are just a few of the many things that I put forward in the book about the millennium, there'll be no more remembrance of bad events from the past. A place where many places, especially Israel, will be restored to Garden of Eden-like conditions. There'll be life in the Dead Sea in the Israel area, gushing waters in wildernesses and streams in flowing deserts, abundant vegetation, grain and grapes that grow faster than they can be harvested, many vineyards that drip of sweet wine. There'll be robust construction and farming industries, and those are just a few of the things. But let's talk about for a minute, if we can, in Revelation 11, verses 6 through 8. It says, the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play by the cobra's hole, and the weaned child will put his hand in the viper's den. So this is really interesting. Okay, first of all of the creation there'll be no predatory behavior, but the very interesting thing is that a child will lead what we would consider the wild animals, okay? And a nursing child, meaning a baby who's, when she's done nursing, the mother's gonna set it down by the cobra's den. Okay? You would never fathom that at this point in time, but that's how creation will be so restored and harmonious. It says the weaned child that's no longer nursing will be by the viper's den. So this is part of the training of a child, it looks like, in this period. The nursing child will be cuddling with the cobra, the weaned child will be visiting with the viper, and then the preschooler, or the small child, after all that, will be leading what we would consider wild animals in the Messianic kingdom. I just think that's fantastic when you think about it. We're not talking about stuffed animals. We're talking about literal animals that are all at peace in the millennial kingdom.
You know, when we think about this passage as well as others, I mean, Ezekiel 40 through 48, which you cover as well, in the sense of this temple that God has where there's a plain and the whole world looks at the mountain of the Lord. I mean, we have all these reconstructions of what God is doing in order to be, for Jesus Christ and his throne in Jerusalem, to be the center.
That's right. The throne will be in Jerusalem, Jeremiah 3:17. There'll be a millennial temple. The presence of God, his Shekinah glory, will be in the inner court. It's going to be incredible. There'll be an abundance of people populating the earth, living righteous lives. I mean, it's just really incredible. But as we talked about in the last program, the fly in the ointment, the monkey wrench in the millennial machinery is the sin nature will still be there. So people birthed into the generations through the 1,000 years will have to also make a choice, a decision for Jesus Christ. And they'll be requested to come on a pilgrimage on the Feast of Tabernacles to come see Jesus. And he chastised Egypt. He says, if you guys don't come, there'll be a famine of no rain. And it's that's that important that people make the pilgrimages to see Jesus on the Feast of Tabernacles so that they can see who he is. Because someone living in Africa wouldn't necessarily know how wonderful he is from Jerusalem. They make that pilgrimage, bring your children, and make your decision for Christ. Because if you don't, by the age of 100, it says in Isaiah 65:20, the accursed, the child will live that long, but if they don't make that decision, the accursed sinner would die at the age of 100. So there'll still be death in the millennium.
And one of the things that Bill brings up in this book is the tremendous amount of information that we find in the Bible about the way that the millennium is organized in a governmental perspective. I mean, talk just for a moment about that. I mean, in the sense of what you see as, we know according to Matthew 19 that the disciples, the 12 apostles, will sit on 12 thrones. What other organization happens during the millennium?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, we're told in Isaiah that the government will be upon the Messiah's shoulders. There'll be peace worldwide and that sort of thing. So I'm going to tell you a few of the topics, but in the book I put the verses in quote, how we know what we're saying is true. The King of Kings, Jesus Christ, will be the ruler over Israel and the whole world. But underneath him, the prime minister will be a resurrected King David. And there's certain prophecies talk about the Prince King David would rule over Israel proper, so to speak. Israel proper by that time will be expanded into the full promised land between the river of Egypt and the river of Nile, probably the river Euphrates through Iraq and Syria. And then there will be the 12 apostles. Will be like the Supreme Court. They will actually be judging over the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, then you're going to have judges and counselors, other princes involved. This is in the Jewish branch.
Just the Jewish
millennial government. Yeah, correct. There'll be a Gentile branch as well. There'll be the church, and the church is comprised of Jews and Gentiles. Don't get me wrong, but we will be reigning with Christ. We're told that the tribulation saints, resurrected, will also be reigning with Christ. So those
all
are
in our glorified bodies.
All resurrected, glorified bodies. Those are also Jews and Gentiles as well. We're told in Revelation 7 that they will actually probably be serving the Lord day and night in his temple. There'll be kings and queens. I show that out in the book as well, over various nations. It looks like the UK is going to be there. Iran's going to have a remnant. Jordan's going to have a remnant. Egypt and Assyria is going to have a remnant with a highway that connects them. I mean, it's not just going to be Israel.
Yeah, I mean, Egypt and Assyria are called my people in that same passage in Isaiah, right?
Yeah, that's right. So it's going to be incredible, you know, but these are all saved individuals going into the kingdom.
You know, there is a lot written in the book, your book, especially in the Bible, and I really don't want to be a downer here, but there's sin in the millennium, and the Bible says that Jesus is ruling with a rod of iron, and there are us in our glorified bodies, sin has been forever removed, but there are those that have come in and survived the tribulation, and they're offered to go into the millennium in their normal human bodies, Matthew chapter 25. They have a sin nature. And so here we come after 1,000 years. I mean, here's Jesus been there, life has gone on, it's beautiful, all the world has been restored. One of the sections you have in the book is called the aftermath. And so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we have the aftermath after the millennial kingdom of an unspecified period of time. Then you have the eternal order, which is a very specified time. It's eternity, right? But so we'll talk about the aftermath because there's powerful things going on at all these times. So Satan's been bound for 1,000 years in the abyss. That starts right at the beginning, just prior to the millennial and the 75-day interval. But he's got to be loosed. And when he gets loosed, he comes out. It says he comes out and he deceives a multitude of people that are spread out throughout the whole world, and they use the word.
He's released for a short time, however long that.
He's released for a short time, and they use the word Gog of Magog there. So he grabs people all throughout the world, though, not just the Gog of Magog in Ezekiel 38, and he deceives them. Meaning, it's a multitude of people that are tired of being ruled by a rod of iron, that are going to join together with him, and it says they come to do a rebellion. And they come against the saints in the beloved city of Jerusalem. So can you imagine that? 1,000 years of this beautiful kingdom, but the sin nature is so predominant that this happens. And of course, God shoots fire down on them. Now, some people think that's the Ezekiel 38 Gog and Magog invasion. In the book, I point out about 6 reasons why that's too distinctly different and that sort of thing. But then you have the white throne judgment.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the second resurrection. When out from We're told in Revelation 20 that there'll be a white throne. Heaven and earth will flee away from it. Someone will be sitting on it. It turns out to be Jesus Christ is sitting on the white throne judgment. And the dead are going to be raised from the dead. Death and Hades are going to raise them from the dead. And the books will be opened. There's an autobiography in the Book of Life. The Book of Life is one of the books that will be opened. And the Book of Life contains the names of everyone. It's like a birth registry. Everyone who's ever been born is in the Book of Life. And their autobiographies are in there. God cared enough about everybody. He loved the whole world. He sent his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, that none would perish, but all would have everlasting life who put their faith in him. He has an autobiography of everybody. They're going to be standing before Jesus Christ, and their autobiographies are going to be there, and they're going to be found wanting, because even though God knew about them, kept their story in the Book of Life, they didn't have any regard for God.
Yeah.
And that Book of Life, they will be blotted out at that time, and they will be cast into the lake of fire. And they will meet up there at that point in time with Satan, the Antichrist, and the false prophet, who were cast alive in there already, prior. Antichrist and false prophet at the beginning of the millennium, Satan at the end of the millennium, at the aftermath, in the Gog and Magog invasion, and then here they go following on his heels right in there. And so, folks, we want to tell you right now, that's one of the more important parts of the book and the DVD, because when you read about that, there's no way in the world you want yourself or any of your loved ones to be any possibility that could happen to them.
Yeah, you know, when you think about Revelation 20, and maybe you can comment on this, that you have God's glory filling the whole earth. And tell me, I mean, speculate with me a little bit, because I think it's just interesting. Why does God release Satan after 1,000 years? He's been bound, he's been kept away, him and all his followers. Why does God let him out?
Well, it's interesting. For some reason, he's decided that sin has to play its whole thing out with the satanic and angelic wicked host influence. And then Satan's bound for 1,000 years, and man will still have a sin nature in the millennium, and he won't be able to say the devil made me do it. But he's going to have a sin nature, so God's going to allow everyone to see how deadly and devastating the sin nature is. I mean, you know, the 10 Commandments was dealing with that. Don't murder, don't covet, no idolatry, etc. So that's a big deal, even whether it's influenced by Satan or not. And God is ultimately in the eternal order, which we'll get into. He's actually going to, with Jesus Christ, they're both going to dwell together with mankind in the eternal order. So all sin has to work itself all the way out, so that we can see how really bad it is, and then God's going to get rid of it, and he's going to bundle it all up, and he's going to throw it in the lake of fire. And then what's going to happen is God is going to dwell, because he can't dwell where sin is at this point. That's why in the millennium, Jehovah's Shekinah glory will inhabit the inner court of the millennial temple, but Jesus Christ will actually inhabit the earth at that time. Now, Jesus Christ, of course, came when there were sinners here, and he died for the sinners. So, you know, he can be around a sin nature. He's already been there, done that, right? But God can't, he's so righteous, he can't be in the presence of sin. So ultimately in the eternal order, sin is already bottled up in the lake of fire. And then that sort of concludes the aftermath age. And then we get into the eternal order, where you have a new heaven, a new earth. There'll be no more death. The curse of sin will be gone. No more crying, no more pain. These are ramifications of the curse of sin. And there'll be a new Jerusalem. It's going to be huge. John sees a new Jerusalem descending down from heaven. A city of gold, about 1,500 miles square. It could be a pyramid, it could be a cube, some people suggest. But Warren Wiersbe says, and I quote him in the book, this will be about the size of 2/3 of the United States. It's going to be huge. It's got a street of gold, it's got a river of life, a tree of life. It's going to be a massive wall made of jasper.
Wow.
It's going to have, the gates are going to be made of pearl with the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. The foundations are going to be with the 12 apostles, made of precious gemstones. I mean, I take time to analyze the cost of each one of these gemstones in the modern market, just an ounce of them. We're talking about a city that's 2/3 the size of the United States. God spares no expense in his mineral and precious gems for this holy city. And personally, the question that people ask, and it's a really interesting question, is does that city already exist right now?
Yeah.
As a satellite
Save
city?
that for a moment here, because I think we need to take a break here for a moment, because we want to let you know how you can get this book. I mean, there's so much information that Bill has put in this book. Again, really taking a little bit here, a little bit there from a variety of places. And he's brought it all into one spot. So we're going to take a little break here for you to see how you can get this.
As you've heard today, Bill Salus began writing about the biblical roadmap to the future several years ago. His new book, The Millennium Prophecies and the New Jerusalem, takes a look at a subject most Christians know little about, the things that take place on earth after Jesus returns. We're making the Millennium Prophecies available today for your gift of $25 or more to help support the work of Prophecy Watchers. Shipping, as always, is included anywhere in the USA. Just call the toll-free number on your screen 24/7 or visit our online bookstore at prophecywatchers.tv, and we will get this encouraging book on its way to you. We also have put together a special package of all 5 of Bill's books in this End Time series. They include the Now Prophecies, the Next Prophecies, the Last Prophecies, and the Final Prophecies. When you purchase the Bill Salus End Time book collection for your gift of $100 or more, we're going to send you all 5 of Bill's books in the series, including his brand new Millennium Prophecies book. And we're going to add a beautiful coffee table book by Tony Evans, Experiencing Israel, a $30 hardback book that will take you to Israel's most important and memorable places. Each month, the Prophecy Watcher magazine arrives in thousands of mailboxes all around the world. Our newly expanded 48-page magazine features cutting-edge articles written by the top prophecy experts, writing about things you may never hear about in church. Examine the doctrine taught by the Apostle Paul on the rapture of the church. Come to a deeper understanding of the giants of Genesis 6 and the real reason for the flood of Noah. Read the shocking things we see coming out of the world of science and technology, mind-blowing information on transhumanism and artificial intelligence. We also believe the Bible is a supernatural book, and we cover the fringe subjects too: UFOs, the Nephilim, the miracles of the Bible, and so much more. It's a one-of-a-kind publication full of articles that will make you a Bible prophecy expert and prepare you for the future. We have a very special subscription offer for you. We've never done anything quite like this before. For your gift of $50 or more to support the worldwide outreach of Prophecy Watchers, you can subscribe to either the digital or print version of our magazine. And here's the best part. In addition to 12 issues of the magazine, this offer comes with a fantastic bonus: 8 DVDs from some of the leading prophecy experts in the world, including our founder, Gary Stearman. Gary shares his insights on the last trump, a study on the raptured trumpet of 1 Corinthians 15. Prophecy legend Thomas Ice joins Gary in defending the rapture. Gary explores the controversial 6th chapter of Genesis and the giants of the Bible in 2 DVDs. It's all about the seed and footprints of the Nephilim. And in a live, hour-long presentation, he asks the question we all want to know: are we the last generation? 8 DVDs plus 12 issues of the magazine represents a $225 value, all for your gift of just $50 or more to support Prophecy Watchers. This offer is available anywhere in the USA and will ship both the magazine and the DVDs to you absolutely free. Don't wait or hesitate. Call the toll-free number on the screen or visit our online bookstore at prophecywatchers.tv to take advantage of this limited time offer.
Well, I really hope you get this book because Bill has put so much into it. And Bill, as we think about this, let's kind of transition. You know, you brought up the eternal city. Sin's done, the great white throne judgment is done, sin is removed, and now the Bible transitions in chapter 21 into the eternal order. So, you know, how do you address that?
Like the millennium has highlights of life, the eternal order has also highlights of life. I'll rifle off a few of them for you. Well, there'll be a new heaven and a new earth. You know, the millennium had a restored heaven and a restored earth. But we're told that the white throne judgment, that earth flees away along with the heavens. So God is actually going to create a brand new heaven and a brand new earth, and John sees this. There'll be a new holy city called the New Jerusalem. We just talked about how huge it's a city of gold, street.
Give us the numbers again on
Main
that.
Street. It's going to be about 1,500 miles squared. Its width and its length and its height are all the same. Could be a cube, could be a pyramid. It'll cover about 2/3 of the United States. You can come from Seattle on down to San Diego, all the way over through Dallas, maybe San Antonio, on up through Montana up there.
It's huge.
I mean, 2/3 of the United States, that's how huge it's going to be. And it's adorned like a bride. It talks about it comes down from heaven, not built up from ground up. It's built from heaven and descends downward. God the Father will dwell amongst his people because there'll be no more sin obstructing his presence here. There'll be no more curse, death, sorrow, crying, or pain. All things will be made new, Mondo. God's people will be treated as sons and become heirs to all things. There'll be no fifth Jewish temple. There'll be 4 prior Jewish temples. The Solomonic temple, which was destroyed around 587 BC, the Herodian temple, that was destroyed by the Babylonians. The Herodian temple was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. The Tribulation temple will be destroyed when Christ goes in and takes out the abomination and desolation on the 1290 day we talked about in the last program in Daniel chapter 12. The millennial Jerusalem will actually also go away because when the earth flees and the heaven flees at the white throne judgment, there'll be no millennial temple to be able to stand there. So there'll be no fifth Jewish temple, for God and the Lamb are its temple, we're told. There'll be a crystal clear, pure river of life and a tree of life. But the real exciting thing is John sees, he says, I see this holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. And the city is laid out square. We talked about the dimensions of that. And it encompasses pretty much the 2/3 of the United States. What a construction project that must be. But does that city exist already? There are some people, and I put quotes in the book, who suggest that that city is a satellite city that may exist already. Okay? And when Jesus says in John 14, he says, and as a matter of fact, let me just read this as we start to wind down on this, because this is really important. He says, this is John 14, 1-4. He goes, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself. And where I am, there you may be also. And where I go, you know, and the way you know. Now, what's interesting to me is he uses the word your or you 9 times in those 4 verses, making it a very personal message. If you believe in Jesus Christ, let your heart not be troubled, because these promises are for you. He's going to prepare a place for you in his Father's house, and there are many mansions there. We find out that the Father lives, he lives in heaven where the New Jerusalem's coming out of, and he will be dwelling in the presence of man in the New Jerusalem, in the eternal order. Are these mansions being prepared in the New Jerusalem? And I believe that could be the case. Where do we go when we're caught up and raptured as a church saint? We go to these places that are being prepared. We might be getting this. John says, I saw this city. Okay, he didn't see the blueprints of this city. There's a quote, let me find, Abraham said, many people believe this city Abraham saw too. He says in Hebrews 11, by faith Abraham dwelt in the land of promise as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob and heirs with him of the same promise, for he waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Which means 4,000 years ago, Abraham was waiting for a city that had foundations. I'm presuming we could take that literally. In other words, this city may have been existing even back to the time of Abraham.
God does live somewhere, right?
That's right. So my comment is this, believers, is that, and if you're not a believer, please become one, is that when the rapture comes, we're here today, but in the twinkling of an eye, we could be gone tomorrow into the New Jerusalem, the city of gold, with the streets of gold. I mean, it's an incredible thought. And if it's a satellite city that exists right now, I would bet that's where we're going.
So then what we do see in chapter 21 is the new heavens and new earth. So there's actually a new globe, a new earth, and the city comes down out of heaven, right? Because the city's there, that's what it says. Comes down and does it, a lot of scholars will discuss it, but it comes down and sits down on the surface. And that's our new home. I mean, this idea that we're going to live out in the by and by in heaven somewhere. I mean, our home is earth, as well as a city, the heavenly city coming down, the New Jerusalem. So, I mean, do you think it's sitting on the surface?
Well, it says he's making a new heaven and a new earth, so I believe it's going to be sitting on the earth. It may not be sitting in the United States, I use the example, it's 2/3 the size of the United States for an example. It may very well,
on land somewhere.
We don't know where. It could be in the Middle East, we don't know.
Yep.
But that will be going on in the eternal order. But it's interesting in Revelation, we were talking about this before the show, then the lake of fire, it reminds us in the final chapter, it reminds us that during the lake of fire, there's going to be all the sinners and that sort of thing. So amidst all of this stuff, he's telling us all this good stuff, no more sin, no more death, no more curse, no more tears, no more pain. But he reminds us, in the lake of fire, all that has been contained to be a reminder to us of how this all got to where we're going to be in the eternal order. Do you want to read that?
Yeah, let me read that because Jesus is making a comment here in Revelation 22, and he's talking about the glories of the new eternal order, which is, again, wonderful. He says in verse 12, Revelation 22:12, "And behold, I am coming quickly, and my reward is with me to give everyone according to his work. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Blessed are those who do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and they may enter through the gates into the city." Verse 15. "But outside are dogs and sorcerers and sexual immoral and the murderers and idolaters, and whoever loves and practices a lie. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify of these things." So it's interesting, here even at the end, we have this mention of sin and those things that exist even after all the glory and all the New Jerusalem has come down. And so let's talk about that.
That's right. And they won't be in the New Jerusalem. They won't be in the eternal order.
They're outside.
The presence of God will be outside. They've been bottled up and confined with Satan, the false prophet, the Antichrist, death and Hades, cast up out all the unbelievers at the white throne judgment, and they've got their domain, the lake of fire. And so, we're going to encourage you in our last minute here.
Yeah.
Knowing this is a clear choice. It's black and white. Where this all ends, from here to eternity, is you can be in the eternal order in the New Jerusalem. You can be a believer in Jesus Christ. You can dwell in the presence of both Jesus Christ and God himself, God the Father. Or you can be on the outside, cast out into outer darkness, everlasting fire in the lake of fire. And that is a very critical choice people need to make.
Well, I appreciate, Bill, you coming out today. And if you've been watching this, we've been talking on a couple programs here about Bill's book. And Bill has done a very thorough job from the entire scope. I mean, in all of his prophecy books he's come. But this final book, The Millennium, he's gone from the transition from Jesus' return, all describing the way that the millennium is going to be. And we want you to be there. I mean, above all else, as you're watching this, we encourage you to make sure that you have Jesus in your life, that you have committed your life to him, that you have trusted him for salvation. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on in this world, and we're watching it. We're watching things change. And on that note, we want to remind you that we have a tremendous amount of information and teachings, not just on television. So if you go to our website, prophecywatchers.com, or also you can go there and you can find information at how to download our app. I mean, we're on the internet. There's just a variety of other ways to find us and to be educated and to be encouraged, really in this time of trouble. But we appreciate Bill being here today, writing about this great topic. So thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter.